The film opens on a vast, isolating, and starkly beautiful winter landscape. We are introduced to Sandra Guidry, a black woman living a solitary life in a remote house nestled deep within a snowy canyon. Sandra is a professor of public speaking at the local university, originally from New Orleans. Her life is quiet and ordered, marked by the recent death of her mother, a loss that hangs heavy in the silence of her home. We first see her in her element at the university, delivering a final lecture to her class. She speaks with passion about the nature of change, acknowledging that it often comes with feelings of loss and resistance. She encourages her students to never feel powerless, telling them, "When you feel that way, that is the moment to begin work. On whatever fires you up, you just start chipping away." Her words are a testament to a belief in principled action and the power of using one's voice, a belief that will be profoundly tested. After class, she attends a retirement party for a colleague named George, where the department head, Arthur, gives a warm speech. Here, we see the professional world Sandra navigates, collegial on the surface, but with underlying tensions. Arthur offers her his condolences for her mother's recent passing, to which Sandra stoically replies, "I'm just glad that she's not suffering anymore." As she prepares to leave for the day, she mentions a minor but unsettling incident to Arthur. A red truck was parked in her driveway that morning. Arthur casually dismisses it, suggesting it was probably hunters and noting that red trucks are as common as the state car. This brief exchange establishes the central conflict and the dismissive attitude she will repeatedly face. The next morning, Sandra's fears are realized. The red truck is back, parked squarely on her property. Two men, Nathan and his brother Samuel, are preparing to go hunting in the national forest that borders her land. Sandra approaches them, her demeanor firm but polite. She informs them that they must have seen the note she left on their truck the previous day. Nathan claims it's the first he's heard of any note. Sandra clearly states her position. "It said I'd prefer you not park here." The men are casually dismissive, explaining that her property is the most convenient access point to the woods. Sandra suggests they could enter from the other side of the canyon, but Nathan scoffs when he learns it is about 15 miles away. The tension in the conversation slowly builds. The men see her request as an unreasonable demand that they walk 15 miles through the snow. Sandra corrects them, clarifying that she isn't telling them what to do, but simply stating a fundamental rule of etiquette and law: "All I'm saying is before you park on someone's property, you have to ask." Nathan's tone shifts from dismissive to vaguely menacing. "I heard about you," he says, "just didn't know it was this canyon." It's a subtle but clear indication that Sandra's race and status as an outsider are known in the community. Ignoring her request, he tells his brother to get in the truck, and they drive off, leaving Sandra standing alone, her reasonable request completely disregarded. Sandra refuses to let the trespass stand. When she finds the red truck parked on her property again, she takes decisive action. She has it towed. This act of enforcing her rights, however, is not seen as a legitimate response but as a provocation. She returns home later to find a dead bird left on her porch, a clear and unsettling message. The situation escalates further when she discovers an arrow shot directly into her front door. The violation is no longer just a matter of trespassing, it has become a direct and threatening act of intimidation. Her home, her sanctuary in the vast wilderness, no longer feels safe. Realizing the situation is spiraling out of her control, she collects the evidence, the arrow, cigarette butts left by the men, and photos, and resolves to involve the authorities, an action she believes is the right and proper next step for any citizen whose property and safety have been threatened. Sandra's attempt to seek help from law enforcement is a profoundly disillusioning experience. She meets with the acting sheriff, Gus Wolf, a man who embodies the local culture's resistance to formal authority. From the start, Gus is more interested in her background than her complaint, asking where she's from and making small talk about her hometown of New Orleans, which he calls the Big Easy. When she tries to steer the conversation back to the issue, he is patronizing and dismissive. He suggests that while trespassing is a serious offense in a city, out here, things are a little different. He explains that locals tend to handle such matters amongst themselves, advising her to let the small things go to avoid a bigger problem down the road. Even when she points out they shot an arrow into her door, Gus immediately pivots to her actions, retorting, "I understand that, but you did tow their truck." He frames her lawful response as an escalation that might upset people. He warns her that involving the sheriff's department will be seen as yet another provocation by the two gentlemen. Reluctantly, Gus agrees to speak with the men. Sandra insists on coming along, much to his annoyance. They find one of the brothers, Nathan, at his workplace. The confrontation is tense and fruitless. Nathan is defiant, complaining that Sandra nearly broke his truck's axle. Gus's authority is clearly weak. He reminds Nathan that he is only the acting sheriff. He manages to extract a grudging promise from Nathan to stay off her property, but it feels hollow. Next, they go to a logging site to find the other brother, Samuel. The loggers are openly hostile, their faces hidden behind masks. They challenge Gus's authority, referencing a past incident where his boss, the actual sheriff, shot their cousin. The loggers see Gus and his uniform as representing a corrupt system. Sandra, attempting to de-escalate, steps in and speaks to the men with empathy, acknowledging their anger over their cousin's shooting. She appeals to a shared set of rules, but the men remain hostile. The encounter ends with no resolution. On the drive back, Gus is furious with Sandra. "I told you that around here, contacting authorities only makes things worse," he fumes. When she argues that she should feel safe in her own house and be able to rely on the police, he delivers a chilling assessment of their reality. "Ma'am, there isn't enough law in this whole state to make you feel safe. Now, you want to live out in the middle of a canyon, you're on your own." He suggests if she can't handle it, she should move into a condo or go back to the Big Easy. The message is clear: the law will not protect her here. She is an outsider, and she is alone. Parallel to her escalating conflict at home, Sandra faces a different, more insidious battle at work. She is part of a search committee tasked with presenting the 3 best candidates to the dean for a new faculty position. At the initial meeting, Sandra gently pushes for the committee to consider diversity, arguing from her own experience that students from different backgrounds, such as those from the local Native American reservation, enrich the classroom environment. She says, "You can call it diversity. I don't know. It just seems like the right thing to do to bring in different sorts of people when we can, rather than doing the same old thing we've been doing." The committee, led by department head Arthur, seems to agree, and they make it a priority. However, when the final vote occurs, the committee selects an all-white list of 3 candidates. Sandra objects, reminding them of their prior agreement to try and recommend at least one person of color. Arthur immediately becomes defensive, twisting her words and accusing her of trying to fill a quota. He insists the process was fair and that they must rally behind the list to avoid angering the dean. The argument becomes heated. Arthur dismisses her concerns as identity politics and tells her, "Sandra, this is not about you. This is about hiring the best person for the job. Period." When she presses the issue, he plays his final card, saying condescendingly, "You're here. We hired you, didn't we?" The implication is that her own hiring was a concession to diversity and that she should be grateful rather than critical. She is silenced, her principles overridden by the committee's desire to maintain the status quo and avoid conflict. In a surprising turn, the narrative provides a moment of unexpected connection between Sandra and her antagonist, Nathan. She sees his red truck parked outside a local church and, compelled by a need to understand, she follows him inside. It is the funeral for his mother. Sandra sits in the pews, and Nathan, instead of being hostile, approaches her. He recognizes the hymn being played, "Beautiful Savior," and tells her his mother used to play it. Sandra shares that her own mother, an organist in New Orleans, also played the same song. This shared piece of music opens a door to a quiet, somber conversation about their mothers and their shared experience of grief. Nathan admits he only comes to church to make his mother happy. Sandra understands, saying, "I know all about that." He speaks of his mother's unhappiness and her tendency to hold on to grudges for decades, saying, "Everything was a battle." Sandra relates, sharing that her own mother was never content and never forgave me for bringing her up here. She hated the cold. For a brief moment, they are not adversaries but 2 people connected by the complex pain of their maternal relationships. The conversation touches on cycles of behavior and the possibility of sacrifice to break them. However, the moment is fleeting. Sandra tells Nathan he needs to leave, and the fragile truce ends as quickly as it began. This encounter adds a layer of tragic complexity to Nathan, showing him not just as a one-dimensional villain, but as a man shaped by his own history of unhappiness. The institutional battle at the university comes to a head. Gretchen, a student who was supposed to be a teaching assistant for Arthur, comes to Sandra's house in distress. She asks if she can be Sandra's TA instead. When Sandra probes, Gretchen reveals a disturbing incident. After the Christmas party, Arthur came to her while she was working, claimed to have pulled a muscle, and asked her to rub lotion on his shoulders, which she did. Sandra is outraged and tells Gretchen she doesn't have to accept this kind of behavior. She insists they go to the dean immediately, arguing, "We have to fight back every time. All the time or this is going to go on forever." But Gretchen, fearing the repercussions on her academic career, backs down. She refuses to corroborate the story or even admit that Sandra was telling the truth about what she said. The next day, Arthur confronts Sandra, armed with Gretchen's denial. He publicly humiliates her, suggesting she is having a mental breakdown due to her mother's death and should take a term off to go see a shrink. Once again, Sandra is left utterly alone, betrayed by the very student she tried to protect and ostracized by a system that protects its own. Her faith in institutions, both the law and academia, is completely shattered. The fragile peace in the canyon is broken for good. Sandra returns home to find that the hunters have trespassed again. This time, they have left a gruesome display, a freshly killed deer, its entrails steaming in the snow, right in her yard. It is the ultimate act of violation, a declaration that they can and will do whatever they want. Her neighbor, Arthur, comes out to see the commotion. Rather than offering support, he sides with the hunters, telling Sandra to mind your own goddamn business. The hunters taunt her, with Samuel making a lewd comment about wanting to do the mama deer as well. Sandra, pushed past her limit, warns them, "You come back here again, I'll fucking kill you. I swear to God, I'll fucking kill you." Arthur, trying to play the peacemaker, physically tries to restrain her. In the struggle, Sandra gets her hands on Arthur's hunting rifle. The hunters, seeing her armed, become more aggressive. Holding the rifle, Sandra stands her ground. The lifetime of aggressions, the casual racism, the institutional indifference, the personal threats, has come to this final, terrifying moment. The men advance toward her, ignoring her warnings. She fires a warning shot into the air. They keep coming. Left with no other choice in her mind, she does what she promised. She shoots them both. The aftermath is quiet and grim. The acting sheriff, Gus Wolf, arrives at her house. The final scene is a tense, unspoken confrontation. Sandra sits in her house, the fire burning in the hearth. Gus, looking at the bodies, then at her, understands what has happened. No words are exchanged, but the air is thick with the terrible finality of her actions. She has done what the law would not. She has protected herself. The film ends in a haunting, symbolic coda. We see Sandra at her mother's funeral in New Orleans, the event that has been looming over her throughout the story. The cycle of grief and loss is complete. In the final, powerful image, we see Sandra's house in the canyon engulfed in flames. Having taken matters into her own hands and severed her ties with the indifferent world around her, she seemingly chooses to destroy the last piece of her life in that place. It is an act of ultimate destruction, but perhaps also one of liberation, erasing a home that was never a sanctuary, in a country that was never truly hers. She is, as Gus Wolf told her she would be, entirely on her own.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.